Have you ever noticed how some people say, "I'm sorry," yet their words feel hollow? The tone sounds soft, the delivery seems sincere, but deep down, you know it's not regret you're hearing. It's manipulation disguised as remorse, because not every apology is meant to heal you. Some are designed to control you, to reset your forgiveness while avoiding the truth that broke you in the first place. It's like a snake shedding its skin. It looks new, but the same venom hides underneath. Or like a mask painted with sympathy while the eyes behind it stay cold. These kinds of apologies aren't about peace, they're about power. They keep you questioning your feelings, doubting your memory, and carrying the weight of someone else's guilt. Here's the truth. Real apologies rebuild, fake ones repeat. The sincere say, "I understand how I hurt you," while manipulators say, "Can't we just move on?" One seeks understanding, the other seeks escape. And the moment you start noticing that difference, you'll stop falling for empty words. Because when remorse is real, it doesn't demand belief, it proves itself through change. So how do you recognize when an apology is just another act in their performance? Stay until the end, because the truth behind these manipulative apologies will change the way you hear the words "I'm sorry" forever. Let's get started. Number 1. I'm sorry you feel that way. Let's talk about one of the most manipulative non-apologies you'll ever hear. I'm sorry you feel that way. On the surface, it sounds considerate, even polite. But if you listen closely, it's not an apology at all. It's blame disguised as empathy. Instead of taking responsibility, the person flips the focus back onto you. Suddenly, the issue isn't what they did, it's how you reacted. They're not acknowledging the harm they caused, they're subtly suggesting that your emotions are the problem. Here's the truth. When someone says, "I'm sorry you feel that way," they're not apologizing, they're defending themselves. It's a way of keeping their conscience clean without making amends. They want to sound remorseful without actually being accountable, because true accountability would mean admitting fault, showing humility, and committing to change, and that's something manipulators avoid at all costs. This kind of apology is emotional deflection in disguise. It keeps them in control of the narrative. You end up second-guessing yourself. Maybe I did overreact, you think, even though deep down you know you didn't. And that's exactly the point. They want you to question your feelings so they don't have to confront their actions. It's one of the oldest psychological tricks in the book, shift the blame while sounding noble. This is where Stoic wisdom steps in. Seneca once said, "He who excuses himself accuses himself." In other words, when someone feels the need to justify, twist, or reframe their wrongdoing instead of admitting it, they've already revealed the truth. They know they're in the wrong. A wise person owns their behavior. They don't hide behind polished phrases or emotional manipulation. They say, "I was wrong," not, "I'm sorry you feel that way." The difference between the two is integrity. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Michael, had a friend who constantly disrespected his boundaries. Whenever Michael confronted him, the friend would say, "I'm sorry you took it that way, but that's not what I meant." Over time, Michael noticed the pattern. Every apology came with a but. Every conversation left him doubting himself instead of feeling heard. One day, Michael decided to stop explaining how he felt. He realized that people who care about you don't invalidate your emotions. They acknowledge them. And once he stopped accepting hollow apologies, that friendship slowly faded. But what replaced it was peace. Peace that came from no longer entertaining people who refused to take responsibility. So how do you respond to this kind of manipulative apology? First, recognize it for what it is. Don't be fooled by their polite tone. If their words shift blame instead of accepting it, it's not genuine. Second, stop over-explaining your feelings. You don't owe anyone a debate about how their behavior affected you. And finally, let their actions, not their words, reveal who they are. At the end of the day, real apologies heal. Fake ones confuse. If someone's sorry makes you doubt yourself more than it brings closure, that's not remorse, it's control. Don't accept it, because you deserve honesty, not emotional manipulation disguised as compassion. Number 2, I didn't mean it like that. Let's talk about one of the most dangerous forms of emotional manipulation. I didn't mean it like that. It sounds harmless, even reasonable, but beneath the surface lies a subtle attempt to rewrite reality. They're not apologizing, they're minimizing your pain to make you question your perception. Instead of acknowledging what they said or did, they twist it, making you feel like the problem isn't their behavior, but your interpretation of it. Here's the truth. Intent doesn't erase impact. It doesn't matter if they didn't mean it. Words have weight, actions have consequences, and when someone hurts you, their intent doesn't magically undo the effect it had on your heart. But manipulators use this phrase because it allows them to escape accountability. It's a clever way of saying, "You misunderstood me," instead of, "I hurt you." It shifts the responsibility from their choices to your feelings. And that's where the emotional damage begins, because once they've made you question how you feel, they control the narrative. You start wondering if you're being too sensitive, if you overreacted, or if you took it the wrong way. It's a trap designed to silence your boundaries and protect their ego. But the truth is, a person who truly cares about you doesn't argue with your pain, they acknowledge it. This is where Stoic wisdom cuts through the fog. Epictetus once said, "The wise man accepts responsibility, not excuses." A wise person doesn't defend their mistakes, they learn from them. They understand that words, once spoken, cannot be taken back. They know that owning your impact is a sign of strength, not weakness. But people driven by pride will always choose excuses over humility. To them, admitting fault feels like losing control, and control is what they fear losing most. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Emily, had a partner who often made cutting remarks disguised as jokes. When Emily expressed that the comments hurt her, he'd respond with, "You're taking it the wrong way. I didn't mean it like that." Over time, Emily began doubting her own emotions. She'd replay conversations in her head, trying to convince herself that maybe he really didn't mean it. But deep down, she knew, whether or not he meant it that way, it still hurt. And the moment she stopped trying to rationalize his words was the moment she regained her power. So how do you handle people who say, "I didn't mean it like that"? First, trust your feelings. If it hurt, it hurt. No explanation can change that. Second, don't argue over intent. Focus on the outcome. Tell them how their words affected you instead of debating what they meant. And finally, set boundaries. If someone keeps hurting you and hiding behind their intent, walk away. At the end of the day, a sincere person focuses on how they made you feel, not how they meant it. Real accountability means caring more about your impact than your image. So the next time someone says, "I didn't mean it like that," remember, intent doesn't heal pain. Honesty, empathy, and responsibility do. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 3, let's just move on. Let's talk about one of the most brutal truths about manipulation. Never accept these apologies. They're just manipulative, because sometimes the most dangerous apology isn't cruel, it's calm. And the phrase, "let's just move on," is the perfect disguise. It sounds peaceful, even mature. But in reality, it's not about healing, it's about avoiding accountability. Here's the truth. When someone says, "let's just move on," what they really mean is, "I don't want to face what I did." It's a plea to skip the uncomfortable part. the reflection, the honesty, the consequences. They're not looking for resolution, they're looking for relief from guilt, from shame, from the weight of being wrong. They want forgiveness without growth, peace without accountability, and a fresh start without correction. This kind of apology is emotional manipulation at its finest because it weaponizes your kindness. They rely on your empathy to let them off the hook. They might even say things like, "Why bring it up again?" or "It's in the past, can't we just move forward?" They frame your need for clarity as negativity, making you feel guilty for simply wanting honesty. And the result? You end up suppressing your feelings to preserve the relationship while they walk away untouched, unchanged. This is where Stoic wisdom steps in. Marcus Aurelius once said, "To escape correction is to remain in error." In other words, the moment someone refuses to reflect on their actions, they guarantee they'll repeat them. A wise person doesn't rush to move on. They pause, examine, and learn. Real maturity isn't about ignoring conflict. It's about growing through it. But manipulators don't want growth. They want comfort. They'll do anything to avoid the discomfort that comes with accountability. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Sarah, had a partner who would say hurtful things during arguments. Every time she tried to discuss it, he'd respond with, "Why are you bringing this up again? Can't we just move on?" At first, she thought he was trying to keep the peace, but over time she realized that nothing ever changed. The same patterns repeated, the same words were said, and every move on moment pushed her feelings further into silence. One day, Sarah stopped agreeing to move on. She decided to confront the pattern instead of sweeping it away, and that was the moment she reclaimed her voice. So how do you handle someone who keeps saying, "Let's just move on"? First, pause the conversation. Don't rush forgiveness just because they want closure. Second, ask questions that require accountability. Try, "Before we move on, what will you do differently next time?" Their answer, or their refusal to give one, will tell you everything you need to know. And third, protect your peace. If someone refuses to grow, no amount of forgiveness will change them. At the end of the day, moving on without reflection isn't healing, it's denial. People who truly care will face the discomfort, take responsibility, and grow from it. But those who say, "Let's just move on," aren't seeking peace, they're seeking escape. So don't confuse their silence for maturity. The wise don't run from correction, they rise through it. Number 4, I only did it because I love you. Let's talk about one of the most dangerous forms of emotional manipulation. Never accept these apologies. They're just manipulative, because when someone says, "I only did it because I love you," what they're really doing is disguising harm as affection. It sounds tender, almost heartfelt, but it's one of the most deceptive phrases you'll ever hear. Why? Because it turns pain into proof of love, and that's not love at all. That's control wearing a mask of care. Here's the truth. When someone uses love to justify hurtful actions, it's not love, it's manipulation. Real love doesn't shame, humiliate, or harm. It doesn't need to break you to prove its depth. But when a manipulator says, "I did it because I love you," they're trying to rewrite their cruelty as devotion. They're saying, "You should accept my behavior because it came from a place of love." It's an emotional trap designed to make you feel guilty for being hurt, and slowly you start to question yourself. Maybe you are overreacting. Maybe they do mean well. Maybe this is just how love looks. But deep down, you know it isn't. This kind of manipulation is especially cruel because it twists the very thing that should protect you, love, into something that wounds you. It teaches you to accept disrespect in the name of care. But Stoic philosophy cuts through the illusion. Seneca once said, "He who harms under the name of love knows neither love nor wisdom." That line reveals everything. A person who hurts you and then hides behind affection isn't guided by love, they're guided by power. They want control, not connection. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Rachel, was in a relationship where her partner often criticized her under the pretense of helping her grow. He'd say things like, "I'm only hard on you because I love you," or "I'm pushing you to be better." But those words always came after emotional damage, after tearing her down, belittling her choices, or mocking her dreams. Over time, Rachel began to equate love with pain. It wasn't until she stepped back that she realized if love constantly makes you feel small, it's not love. It's control dressed up as care. So how do you handle someone who says, "I only did it because I love you"? First, separate their words from their actions. If their love consistently hurts, it's not genuine, it's conditional. Second, don't let affection become a shield for abuse. Just because someone claims love doesn't mean their actions are right. And finally, remember that real love doesn't demand you suffer. It helps you grow in peace, not in pain. At the end of the day, love that harms isn't love. It's manipulation disguised as care. True love respects boundaries, honors feelings, and never uses guilt to justify hurt. So when someone tries to convince you that their cruelty is affection, remember this: anyone who harms you and calls it love doesn't understand either. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a "thank God" and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 5. Everyone makes mistakes. Let's talk about one of the most dangerous half-truths people use to excuse their behavior. Never accept these apologies. They're just manipulative, because while it's true that everyone makes mistakes, it's also true that repeating the same one isn't a mistake. It's a choice. People love to hide behind this phrase because it sounds humble, but it's often a shield used to avoid growth. Here's the truth. Mistakes are supposed to teach, not repeat. When someone genuinely learns from their wrongs, you see change. You see effort, awareness, and progress. But when someone keeps doing the same thing over and over, apologizing the same way each time, what they're saying is, "I know this hurts you, but I'll keep doing it anyway." That's not imperfection, that's indifference. And the moment they use "everyone makes mistakes" to defend their behavior, what they're really doing is minimizing your pain so they can escape accountability. This kind of apology is emotionally manipulative because it uses truth to hide deceit. Yes, everyone does make mistakes, but not everyone keeps making the same ones. Growth requires reflection, humility, and the courage to change. People who truly value you will take responsibility and do better next time. Those who don't will repeat the same pattern, expecting your forgiveness to reset everything like nothing happened. And this is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Seneca once said, "A wise man does not allow the same wound to cut twice." That means learning from the first blow. The Stoics believed that pain, emotional or physical, is a teacher. To ignore its lesson is to remain foolish. A wise person doesn't justify their mistakes with words, they correct them with action. But a manipulator uses the language of wisdom to excuse the lack of it. They'll say all the right things, but never take the steps that prove change. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him David, had a friend who constantly betrayed his trust. Every time David confronted him, the friend would apologize, saying, "I'm only human. Everyone makes mistakes." And because David valued the friendship, he forgave him. But the same betrayals kept happening. Broken promises, small lies, constant disappointment. After years of hearing the same excuse, David finally realized that his friend wasn't learning from his mistakes. He was relying on forgiveness as a safety net. And the moment David stopped accepting that excuse, he regained his peace. So, how do you handle people who say everyone makes mistakes? First, look for change. If their actions stay the same, their apology means nothing. Second, stop accepting recycled remorse. True accountability doesn't need to repeat itself. And finally, protect your boundaries. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone keep hurting you. It means learning your own lesson the same way they should have learned theirs. At the end of the day, mistakes are proof of humanity, but repeating them is proof of manipulation. When someone keeps wounding you while hiding behind "everyone makes mistakes," they're not asking for forgiveness, they're asking for permission. And the wise don't grant it twice. Number 6. I was just joking. Let's talk about one of the most cowardly manipulations disguised as humor. Never accept these apologies. They're just manipulative. Because when someone says, "I was just joking," what they're really saying is, "I want the freedom to insult you without consequences." It's not humor, it's hostility with a smile. This phrase is how cowards hide cruelty. It's how manipulators hurt others while pretending it's all in good fun. Here's the truth. Humor is not a shield for disrespect. If a joke consistently targets your insecurities, undermines your confidence, or embarrasses you in front of others, it's not a joke, it's emotional warfare. People who say you're too sensitive after hurting you aren't comedians, they're deflectors. They use humor as armor, making you question your right to feel hurt. And once you start doubting your emotions, they've already won. Because now, instead of confronting their behavior, you're busy convincing yourself not to take it personally. The Stoics warned us about this kind of behavior long before psychology had a name for it. Marcus Aurelius said, "Mockery is the weapon of the weak." Those words cut straight through pretense. People who resort to mockery are revealing their insecurity, not their strength. When someone feels small inside, they try to make others smaller too. They cloak their bitterness in sarcasm, their jealousy in humor, and their cruelty in jokes. The wise, on the other hand, never need to disguise their words. They speak truth with clarity, not cruelty. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Ethan, had a co-worker who always made jokes at his expense. Whether in meetings or social gatherings, Ethan was always the punchline. If he confronted it, the co-worker would laugh and say, "Relax, man, it's just a joke." At first, Ethan brushed it off, thinking maybe he was being too serious. But over time, the jokes started cutting deeper, mocking his work, his appearance, even his personal life. It wasn't humor anymore, it was humiliation masked as wit. One day, Ethan stopped laughing. He looked the co-worker straight in the eye and said, "If it's funny only to you, it's not a joke, it's disrespect." The laughter stopped. Because when you call out mockery for what it is, it loses its power. So how do you deal with someone who hides cruelty behind humor? First, stop laughing along. You don't need to make them comfortable while they make you feel small. Second, call it out calmly. Ask them, what exactly about that is funny? Watch how quickly their confidence crumbles. And third, remember that respect is non-negotiable. If someone keeps crossing lines and then hides behind jokes, they're not being playful, they're being manipulative. At the end of the day, real humor never hurts. It heals. The people who truly care about you will never make you the punchline. They'll protect your dignity, not mock it. So the next time someone says, "I was just joking," remember, those who mock to wound reveal their weakness, not their wit. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 7. You're too sensitive. Let's talk about one of the most heartbreaking forms of manipulation. Never accept these apologies. They're just manipulative. Because when someone says you're too sensitive, what they're really doing is invalidating your emotions to escape blame. It's a clever form of gaslighting, designed not to comfort you, but to silence you. They make your reaction the problem, so they never have to face the real one, their behavior. Here's the truth. Telling someone they're too sensitive is not empathy. It's control. It's a subtle way of saying, your pain is exaggerated, your feelings are inconvenient, and your truth doesn't matter. It's emotional manipulation in its softest, most poisonous form, because once they convince you that your emotions are the issue, they never have to take responsibility for causing them. They get to keep hurting you while you question your own sanity. And that's what makes this phrase so powerful. It rewires your self-trust. You start wondering if you are overreacting. You start filtering your emotions before expressing them. You start apologizing for simply feeling. Over time, you lose confidence in your own perception. That's not sensitivity, it's emotional exhaustion, and it's exactly what manipulators want, your silence disguised as self-doubt. This is where Stoic wisdom brings clarity. Epictetus said, "Do not let others define the measure of your pain." In other words, no one else has the authority to tell you how deeply something should hurt. Pain is personal. The Stoics believed that while we can control our reactions, we must also honor our reality. To feel deeply is not weakness, it's awareness. And anyone who mocks your emotions for being too much is simply uncomfortable facing the truth of their actions. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Lauren, had a partner who constantly dismissed her feelings. Whenever she brought up something that hurt her, he'd smirk and say, "You're too sensitive. You take everything so seriously." At first, she tried to toughen up, to laugh things off. But slowly, she noticed the pattern. Every time she stood up for herself, he minimized it. One day, during an argument, she stopped and said, "I'm not too sensitive. You're just too careless with your words." That moment changed everything, because the moment you refuse to let someone define your pain, you reclaim your strength. So how do you handle someone who says, "You're too sensitive"? First, pause before defending yourself. You don't need to justify your emotions. Second, reflect on patterns. Do they invalidate you often? Do they ever apologize for what caused the pain, or only for how you reacted? And third, set emotional boundaries. Anyone who consistently dismisses your feelings doesn't deserve front-row access to them. At the end of the day, sensitivity isn't a flaw, it's emotional intelligence. The world needs people who feel deeply and speak honestly. If someone tells you you're too sensitive, what they're really saying is, "Your truth makes me uncomfortable." So wear that sensitivity with pride, because in a world full of people afraid to feel, your empathy is your strength, not your weakness. Number 8. I'm sorry, but let's talk about one of the most dangerous illusions of remorse. Never accept these apologies. They're just manipulative, because when someone says, "I'm sorry, but," they're not apologizing, they're negotiating. They're using the language of humility to protect their ego. Everything that comes after "but" erases everything that came before it. It's not an apology, it's an excuse wrapped in a soft tone. Here's the truth. Anything after "but" cancels the apology. When someone says, "I'm sorry, but you made me angry," or "I'm sorry, but I didn't mean it that way," they're not owning what they did. They're defending it. The word "but" is their shield. It allows them to sound remorseful without admitting fault. And that's the hallmark of emotional manipulation, appearing kind while subtly shifting blame back onto you. It's an apology designed to make you feel guilty for expecting accountability. And this is where it becomes toxic. Because when you accept that kind of apology, you teach them that half-hearted regret is enough. You show them they can hurt you, add a but, and still be forgiven. Over time, they stop even pretending to mean it. They just say, sorry but, out of habit, knowing you'll let it slide. That's not reconciliation, it's repetition. The Stoics saw through this long before modern psychology gave it a name. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The ego loves to justify itself more than it loves the truth." And that's exactly what's happening here. The but is ego's favorite word. It keeps pride alive while pretending to be humble. True strength lies in saying, "I was wrong and I'll do better." Not, "I'm sorry, but you misunderstood." The first leads to growth. The second keeps you trapped in cycles of hurt. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Daniel, had a friend who always crossed boundaries. Whenever Daniel confronted him, the friend would say, "I'm sorry, but you're overthinking it," or "I'm sorry, but that's just how I am." It took Daniel a long time to see that those weren't apologies, they were rehearsed defenses. His friend wasn't acknowledging the damage, he was protecting his image. One day, Daniel responded calmly and said, "If your apology needs a but, it's not an apology, it's a justification." The silence that followed said it all, because people who truly want to make things right don't argue with their own remorse, they act on it. So how do you handle "I'm sorry but"? First, stop accepting conditional apologies. You deserve sincerity, not half-truths. Second, listen for the but. It always reveals whether they're taking responsibility or deflecting it. And third, remember that remorse without change is manipulation. If they keep repeating the pattern, their sorry is just another tool to reset the cycle. At the end of the day, real apologies require ego to die a little. If someone can't say "I was wrong" without defending their pride, they're not sorry. They're just afraid of being seen as the villain. So the next time someone says, "I'm sorry, but," stop listening after the but, because everything real was already cancelled. Number 9. You made me do it. Let's talk about one of the most toxic lies in emotional manipulation. Never accept these apologies. They're just manipulative. Because when someone says, "You made me do it," they're not apologizing. They're assigning blame. They're turning their wrongdoing into your responsibility, as if your actions forced them to behave badly. It's one of the most dangerous psychological tactics because it flips the roles. Suddenly, the victim becomes the villain, and the manipulator becomes the misunderstood one. Here's the truth. No one can make another person act cruelly. Only their own lack of discipline can. This phrase isn't an admission of regret. It's a justification. It's how manipulators avoid the weight of guilt by transferring it to you. They want you to believe that if you had acted differently, they wouldn't have hurt you. If you hadn't raised your voice. If you hadn't questioned me. If you had just trusted me. It's always about what you did wrong, never about what they chose to do. And before you know it, you start apologizing for their behavior. That's how manipulation wins, by rewriting responsibility. This is where Stoic philosophy slices through the illusion. Seneca once said, "Blame is the refuge of the undisciplined." The wise understand that no external force can dictate their character. No matter how frustrating life becomes, how others act, or what's said in the heat of the moment, you always have control over your response. Blame is weakness disguised as pride. It's the coward's way of avoiding self-reflection. The Stoics believed that strength comes from ownership, owning your emotions, your reactions, your choices. When someone refuses that ownership, they remain a prisoner to their own ego. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Jason, was in a relationship where every argument ended the same way, with him being blamed for things he didn't do. If his partner lashed out, she'd say, "You made me angry. You pushed me to this." At first, Jason believed it. He started walking on eggshells, trying not to trigger her anger. But the pattern never changed. The more careful he became, the more she found ways to blame him. Until one day, Jason realized her reactions weren't his responsibility. They were her choice. And once he stopped accepting that false guilt, her power over him disappeared. So how do you handle someone who says, "You made me do it"? First, reject the false narrative. You are not responsible for someone else's decisions. Second, set emotional boundaries. You can't control how someone reacts, but you can control whether you tolerate it. And finally, walk away from people who turn their lack of self-control into your burden. True accountability never begins with blame. It begins with humility. At the end of the day, no one can make another person act without integrity. When someone says, "You made me do it," what they're really saying is, "I don't have the discipline to control myself." And that's not your fault. It's their failure. Because the moment someone blames you for their choices, they've confessed the truth. They haven't mastered themselves. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply. Number 10. You made me do it. Let's talk about one of the most toxic lies in emotional manipulation. Never accept these apologies. They're just manipulative. Because when someone says, "You made me do it," they're not apologizing, they're assigning blame. They're turning their wrongdoing into your responsibility, as if your actions forced them to behave badly. It's one of the most dangerous psychological tactics because it flips the roles. Suddenly, the victim becomes the villain and the manipulator becomes the misunderstood one. Here's the truth. No one can make another person act cruelly. Only their own lack of discipline can. This phrase isn't an admission of regret, it's a justification. It's how manipulators avoid the weight of guilt by transferring it to you. They want you to believe that if you had acted differently, they wouldn't have hurt you. If you hadn't raised your voice, if you hadn't questioned me, if you had just trusted me. It's always about what you did wrong, never about what they chose to do. And before you know it, you start apologizing for their behavior. That's how manipulation wins, by rewriting responsibility. This is where Stoic philosophy slices through the illusion. Seneca once said, "Blame is the refuge of the undisciplined." The wise understand that no external force can dictate their character. No matter how frustrating life becomes, how others act, or what's said in the heat of the moment, you always have control over your response. Blame is weakness disguised as pride. It's the coward's way of avoiding self-reflection. The Stoics believed that strength comes from ownership, owning your emotions, your reactions, your choices. When someone refuses that ownership, they remain a prisoner to their own ego. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Jason, was in a relationship where every argument ended the same way, with him being blamed for things he didn't do. If his partner lashed out, she'd say, "You made me angry. You pushed me to this." At first, Jason believed it. He started walking on eggshells, trying not to trigger her anger. But the pattern never changed. The more careful he became, the more she found ways to blame him. Until one day, Jason realized her reactions weren't his responsibility. They were her choice. And once he stopped accepting that false guilt, her power over him disappeared. So how do you handle someone who says, "You made me do it"? First, reject the false narrative. You are not responsible for someone else's decisions. Second, set emotional boundaries. You can't control how someone reacts, but you can control whether you tolerate it. And finally, walk away from people who turn their lack of self-control into your burden. True accountability never begins with blame, it begins with humility. At the end of the day, no one can make another person act without integrity. When someone says, "You made me do it," what they're really saying is, "I don't have the discipline to control myself." And that's not your fault, it's their failure. Because the moment someone blames you for their choices, they've confessed the truth. They haven't mastered themselves.